Joshua Smith. I'm your town moderator, and I am serving in a volunteer capacity tonight to moderate this candidates night. It's being presented by the Democratic Town Committee. It's a nonpartisan event, but they were the ones who knew how to use Zoom. So there you go. We're going to kind of go round robin, and I have a whole bunch of questions prepared that I will be asking, some of them to all the candidates, some only to candidates for certain boards, and I may ask follow-ups. If anybody, any of the candidates or anybody in the audience wants to ask a question, feel free to type those into the chat. I'll pick out the ones that seem relevant and important, and I'll add those into the mix, but I have a pretty good long list. I think we'll go until we get tired. So tonight, I'm just going to go through the list of offices here, so we know what we're dealing with. So there's a lot of offices that are going to be on the ballot for which only one person is running, or only the same number of people are running as there are open seats, and so there's that's not really much of a choice for people to make, although you could certainly write somebody in if you wanted to. But we're really focusing tonight on the contested seats. For select board, we have two people running for one seat. We have John Dixon, Patrick Gallery. We haven't heard from Mr. Gallery, so I'm assuming he won't be here. But if you are here, let me know in the chat, and we'll make sure that we can ask you questions. But I see John Dixon is here. There is a planning board associate position. The two people running for that are Susan LaRose and John Harpin. Ms. LaRose is not able to make it tonight, although I do have a statement from her. I haven't heard from John Harpin. So again, if you're out there, John, type into the chat so Dylan knows that you're here. And we can add you to the people who get questioned. Running for the full planning board position, we have again Susan LaRose, again John Harpin, and Anthony Mobilio, who is here. And then running for the school committee, we have Richard Allen, Mark Brophy, Melissa Handy, and Patrick Gallery. And I think the first three of those people are here, but Mr. Gallery is not. Oh, John Harpin is here. Excellent. So I will add him to the people that we're asking questions of. So with that, I am just going to start with this first question, which I will just ask you individually to answer. I'd like you to introduce yourself, tell us what you're running for, and why did you decide to run for this seat? And Mr. Dixon has the pleasure of being the first person I'm going to ask. So, Mr. Dixon.
All right, thank you for the unmute. All right, so I am running for select board. One of the main reasons I wanted to run is for the opportunity to serve our town. At the time when I pulled papers, it was a concern that the seat might actually go vacant. So it was part of that. And then as I started understanding it more, researching it more, I do think there is a lot that I can bring to the position through the work that I've done. I work as a civil engineer. I'm actually an engineer in training, so I haven't passed my PE, but I work with towns getting funding for different municipal projects. I've worked with very strict budgets, keeping things in line, understanding how those finances work. And I think, that through that, there's some experience there that I can bring to the table to help Barre become, a little more financially sound going forward. There are other platforms I'd like to approach too, as far as bringing more business in, as that helps build up that base financially, but it also helps build our community, having more places, more opportunities for people to get involved and to have employment. Another area is just having more accountability. That's something I've always been a strong proponent of myself and of others. And ultimately, I'm running because I want to help build our community, to strengthen our community and get more input from our community into what's going on in Barre.
Awesome. Thank you. Same question. John Harpen, can you introduce yourself? Tell us what you're running for and why did you decide to run for this seat?
Hi, yep, I'm John Harpen. I'm running for the planning board, the 5-year and the associate. Yeah, so my background is I'm also a graduated civil engineer from University of Lowell, but I've spent most of my life as a carpenter. And as far as the planning board goes, I've been involved in projects that require an understanding of setbacks and meeting the requirements of a construction project relative with neighbors and the town or community that's being built in. And that's about it. I've never held a public office, and I just, at this point in my life, I have the time to give back to the community. So I thought planning board was the closest fit I could imagine. So yeah, I look forward to working with the town and serving the community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask the same question of Mr. Mobilio. Introduce yourself, tell us what you're running for, and why did you decide to run for this seat?
Yes, I'd like to welcome everybody aboard. I'd like to thank the committee and especially Moderator Smith for hosting, this evening. And I'm running for the 5-year seat on the planning board. And I think the main reason I'm running is because I feel a solid foundation has been built. I was appointed to fill the seat in the election year prior to this current one. So I served for like 3.5 months during that time. And the last election, I was elected as an associate. So there's a lot going on, and I feel that I have a good understanding of what's required. I attend all the meetings. I think it's very important that that's the biggest thing, because you will find a lot of times if you research the minutes or go through them, there's a lot of absenteeism, and you're not any good if you're not there. So participation and being able and being there is really one of the main things also.
Thank you. I think before I move on to the school committee, I'll read the statement. I have a statement from Susan LaRose, who was unable at the last minute to make it. So she sent me a statement to read. My name is Susan LaRose. I'm a longtime resident and voter of the town of Barre, retired first grade teacher who has been performing substitution duties during the last 2 years of the COVID pandemic. After serving 1 term on the planning board, I'm seeking voter support to continue my volunteer service for the planning board. My goal as always is to protect the residents of this beautiful town from the impacts due to overdevelopment and poor planning, which would challenge the quote, New England unquote feel of Barre. The residents need to have a voice before the bylaws are presented for a town meeting vote, and I would like to continue to see this through. I feel very strongly that an important role as a member is to make sure that all the bylaws that were approved by the residents of Barre are upheld for all applicants. I currently work with great board members. I'd be honored to continue to serve as a member of the planning board. So that's Susan LaRose. Moving on to the school committee, Mr. Allen, same question to you. Please introduce yourself. Tell us what you're running for and why did you decide to run for the seat?
Well, Richard Allen's my name. I used to consider why, but I've been on the school committee here for 50 years. So after the first couple of times, it just seemed to be what I do. I have a doctorate in education. I've taught at UMass. I created the teacher licensing test for the state of Massachusetts, as well as many others around the country. I've spent my entire adult life looking to see what is important in education, what other states are doing, how they're doing it. For 30 years, I ran a conference in Chicago, international conference. I had people from China and Australia and England, as well as all across the country. And I think the foundation of our town, our state, our country is clearly laid out. Our country is based on the precepts of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The basis of that is a quality participatory democracy, which is what we're engaged in tonight. The basis of that is a quality, free public education for all of our citizens. I've worked hard to accomplish that, and I think we've had good success. We were prepared when the COVID came along. The state averages went down significantly. Our averages went up. And it's my intent to continue on with that. As a matter of fact, I even got recognized by the state. I have a Lifetime Achievement Award from the state of Massachusetts for this. I want to continue on. Oh, there I am. I lost myself, I guess.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Mr. Brophy.
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Josh, for hosting this. And my name is Mark Brophy, and I'm running for re-election for a position on the Quabbin Regional School Committee. I have been involved in education for 37 years. I've had an opportunity to not only be a teacher, school psychologist, team chair, administrator, a teachers association president, and I've had the opportunity the past 15 years to be elected by the citizens of Barre to be able to be on the Quabbin Regional School Committee. I have an understanding of how the school committee works, the governing body, to understand not only the balanced governance, but also informed oversight. We have a lot of opportunities and challenges ahead of us. We have declining enrollment, but we also have a very good school system that has excellent programs and will continue to not only develop and nurture those programs, but also look for fiscal responsibility and see how we can make the changes needed to allow for success for all learners. So being a member of the committee, there may be 15 personalities, but it's a one body that makes decisions in regards to the educational and social emotional, as well as physical and other opportunities for kids and students to succeed. That the reason is why I'm running is I believe I can be a good participant as a board member. And also I've had the privilege to be chairperson and vice chair in leadership positions. I would like to still continue to be and hopefully be re-elected as a candidate on the committee.
Thank you. And Ms. Handy.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa. I am running for the school committee because I have two children in the school system. My youngest is in kindergarten and my oldest is in first grade. I'm very invested in our children's lives. I want to be a voice for all the families in our community. I feel it's so important to have school board members with children that are currently in our schools because these times are like no other that we've experienced. I want to make sure that there is complete transparency with the parents on what is going on in our schools. I love working with and being a positive example in children's lives, no matter how I'm able to do that. From the bottom of my heart, I want every child to not only succeed academically, but I also want them to feel proud to be growing up in our school system. And I'm willing to do my part in making that happen.
Thank you. Okay. I have another sort of general question, but I think I'm going to hold it and I'm going to jump right into the questions that are specific to board. So this first question is for the people running for the planning board. And my question is, do you support the NRPZ bylaw that was suggested at the last town meeting? And if so, or whether you do or not, what changes would you make to what was proposed at the last meeting? And I think the first person on my list is going to be, how about Mr. Mobilio?
Yes, the NRPZ as presented, we had a consultant from the town of, I think it was Sunderland or Deerfield. But what he proposed and what he gave us, at first we were sort of short-sighted as to how it might affect people. And number one being, we were kind of upset that the large landowners were upset because they came to us one of our open meetings and expressed grave concern that they would not be able to do what they wanted to do on their land, which is completely false. They were not informed as they should have been. April 5th, there is a presentation by the planning board specifically regarding the NRPC and any questions or any concerns that anybody may have. It's still a rough draft. We have gone through everything page by page. And what's really going to happen is everything is going to be fine-tuned more towards Barre. I do support it, but I don't want to see, you know, a developer or something saying, "Oh, we can't do business with Barre. We're out of here." We don't want that.
Thank you. Mr. Harpen, same question to you. Do you support the NRPZ as it was suggested at the town meeting, and what changes would you make to what was proposed?
Sorry to say I'm not familiar with it, so I really don't feel comfortable commenting on it.
Okay, fair enough. The next question is for candidates for select board. I have one of those. The question is, do you consider the road conditions in Barre a priority, and what can the select board do to improve the conditions of the roads in Barre? Mr. Dixon.
So that's absolutely an issue. You know, I work as a transportation engineer and roadway design. So that's an issue that I know pretty much every town is dealing with at some level. I think, you know, one of the biggest ways to work on that is to work closely with the DPW. There's different ways to create pavement management plans that would allow us to prioritize not necessarily the worst roads, but the roads that are going to become worse, so that we can use less expensive options and increase the lane miles that we're repairing and, you know, increasing the lifespan of. There's also a lot of opportunities to look at funding, from complete streets to grants such as Barre grants, anything like that, especially in situations where any sort of pedestrian bicycle accommodations, there's a lot of grant money available in those situations that can improve also the driving pathways. There's a lot of bike trails in Barre that have odd ends that could use roadway funds or roadway grants to create those connections between paths that could also improve those roadways for cars. And I think there's a lot of avenues to look at, and just working closely with DPW and working with the town and as far as writing grant proposals, I think there are a lot of ways that those could be improved.
Okay, thank you. My next question is for candidates for the school committee. What role do you believe the school board should play in choosing the curriculum taught in our schools and in choosing the selection of books available in the school libraries? Mr. Brophy, you want to start us?
The role of the school committee. The way I would start is, first off, the governance of the roles and responsibilities of a school committee. Overseeing and hiring the superintendent in regards to developing a budget, to bringing it to the towns and for approval to the town meetings. Third, in regards to policy and curriculum. In regards to curriculum, we have state frameworks. So we have a frameworks to follow from Ed Reform Law of '93, but we have a curriculum review perspective. There is a compilation of teachers, administrators, as well as review on not only an annual basis on the administration level. It also comes to the school committee, and there's a subcommittee perspective that comes to the full committee in regards to courses. The books are approved through the superintendent's review team. There's a protocol on that. And when I say including parents, there are the PTA, the school councils, the CPAC. So there's avenues to allow folks to be able to see what's happening for what the materials are. So there is a process, there is an annual review, and parents do have a say through the council perspective of the curriculum review. At the end of the day, the superintendent and his or her team, in our case, her, Dr. Muir, would also be able to, we don't have, if we as a school committee wanted to know every piece of literature in our libraries, we could so do that as well. But with summer reading, and lastly, what has happened is we've enhanced the library, the technology to allow kids to access and research. So to finalize that is that there is a process with the school committee. It involves administration as well as teachers and input from various parent organizations structured that's out there as well. And then obviously, if there was any concerns, they would be able to, a parent would be able to go to a principal and hence through a communication system if there was an issue or further deliberation of any type of concern. But as it relates, we are a system of helping and working with kids and students and trying to have an eclectic approach of all types of books and materials and opportunities for students to understand thorough research, resources that are reliable, et cetera, that kind of perspective. So I hope I answered the question from a systemic point to down to right to the decision-making process of the administration regarding books and access and continuous review to add, review, delete, adjust, et cetera.
Thank you. Ms. Handy, the same question to you. What role do you believe the school board should play in choosing the curriculum taught in our schools and choosing the selection of books available in the school libraries?
Well, I think Mr. Brophy pretty much had that covered for the most part, but I do think that parents should feel like their voice and their opinion matters. And I feel like they should play a bigger role than what they appear to be playing right now because it's our children in the school. But I do agree at the end of the day that there should be a system through the superintendent and the school board to come to an agreement with the teachers.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Allen, what role do you believe the school committee should play in choosing the curriculum and the books?
That becomes such an interesting question in this day and age, because books is a much too narrow definition of what we're using to help our children learn. The basic curriculum is set by the state, measured by the MCAS, which those of you who have children in school are well familiar with. But as we're moving forward, online, blended instruction, virtual, all that sort of thing becomes much more important. It's no longer just the teacher and the book presenting information, but there's all this information out there that's available. We've been working on the school committee, we've been working hard to try to make sure that we're in line with that. Mark mentioned we have a subcommittee. I chair that subcommittee. I have for 40 years, more than 40 years now, that looks at the curriculum and the policy. And in 2008, we put in a policy that all kids had to have an online course of some sort to graduate. And we've been working with the teachers the last 10 years for blended instruction, where the teacher manages the instruction and doesn't just present information. And that there's a lot of, so that what happened was, as I mentioned earlier, when the COVID came, and it was not just the teacher in the classroom with the children, but we had all this other information out there available. They dealt with it much differently than other. You read in the papers, oh, the teachers in this town or that town, oh, this is terrible. We don't know, we can't, we won't, we'll hold our breath and turn blue. Our teachers never did that. They said, it's all about the children. We're going to do what we need to help the children as they move forward, as they need to be educated. They did a magnificent job. And as I said, our scores went up where much of the state went down because they were prepared. We were looking down the line, and it's not just the books, it's how kids are going to learn as we're moving forward.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to a very sort of general question. I'm going to ask all of the candidates for all the offices this, and I guess I'll start with you, Mr. Harpen. What is your vision for the future of Barre?
My vision. I think generally speaking, things have been going in the right direction. I'd like to see, see him finish up the mill project and clean that mess up. And yeah, I have a lot to add to that. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Handy, what is your future vision for the future of Barre?
My vision for the future of Barre. Well, I can only speak on it for the schools but I don't know. I want our school system to just be amazing, and I don't know. I just want to do whatever it takes to make that happen.
Okay. Mr. Dixon, what's your vision for the future of Barre?
So my vision for the future of Barre really is more of finding ways to make sure that we can get our community together to get that vision for the community, that we can move that forward. And parts of that, again, are having that financially secure base, that we can capitalize on opportunities when they come up, that we've planned ahead. Part of that goes into doing the master plan that's going on now, making sure we get input there so that we have that focused direction, and we have the ability to just pull projects out of that anytime there's a funding opportunity, so that we're not scrambling to get things together, missing opportunities, paying penalties. I also really believe that we need to see businesses coming back in. I think Barre has done a good job of staying a place where businesses can come, it's accessible to new businesses coming in. There's someone I know who's fed up with his own town who's considering looking in Barre now. And I think it's important to keep those aspects where we are very welcoming, inviting. I remember last year in the same event, there was a question about signs for businesses. And I think right now we're really in a situation where that has to be a hard no. We don't need to add additional challenges to businesses trying to come in, businesses trying to survive. So I think keeping focused on things like that, making sure it stays a plausible location for businesses to come. And then as far as the type of businesses, the way they come in, that's something that we need to really pull the community in on to have that actual direction.
Thank you. Mr. Allen, what is your vision for the future of Barre?
It's a magnificent place. It's a wonderful place. That's why all of us live here. We could live elsewhere. I think that the basis of that, as I stated earlier, is a good, solid quality education. And we have been working hard to have that happen. We have advanced placement courses and international baccalaureate courses so that kids, when they go to college, already have some college credits for that. We have a ROTC program. A year or two ago, we had 3 kids in the Naval Academy. We had one at VMI on a full ROTC scholarship. We had one at the University of Maine on a full ROTC scholarship. We had another one went in from school to the nuclear subs, and he has over 2 years of advanced math and science college credits built up doing that. His sister is in the Air Force. We have people going through our program when we have the alumni concert here in January each year. Probably a third of them are making their living as professional musicians. We have lots of people in art. We have the Pathways program to help people, our children who want to go into business and industry. We have a program with Starretts and a few others. The Starretts one is supposed to pay up to $22 an hour for internships there. So we need to be using this education to help the things that you're talking about, Mr. Dixon, bring business in and that sort of thing. If we have a good educated populace We have people that have gone through these programs and are ready to move and to flourish. Our kids go all around the country. They go to France with the French club. They're with Germany, they've had exchange. With ROTC, they've been to Hawaii. They've been all across the country. Our band has been to Chicago. It's been to the Rose Bowl. It's been to Washington, D.C. They have a perspective of what the country is, what the state is, what the world is. And that many of them come back here. Many of our teachers have children that come back and are teaching in the district. So that I guess my perspective is kind of down to earth and practical. We need a good, solid, educated group of children who can, wherever we go, however we go, help move our town forward.
Thank you. Mr. Mobilio, what is your vision for the future of Barre?
My vision for the future of Barre, it runs along the lines of something just being a little more interconnected. We're kind of spread out. We have a very large square mileage area, but also it's probably is also important to maintain the rural character to some extent. I mean, it's not like 20 or 30 years ago, you'd see that many more farms or that many more people with large livestock farms and stuff like that. But one of the elements that can be utilized to do that is, I think Mr. Dixon may have mentioned this earlier, it might have been with the bike trail and stuff like that. If you build it, they will come. It's been proven. And all small businesses can build along those routes because people will travel just to do that in a community like that. We do need more businesses, but I also think that our distance to the north and to the south, we're right halfway between Route 2 and the Pike. Geographically, it's still very difficult, but I still think what's built here can be built upon. And the big secret of Barre is getting out. This is the place to live.
Thank you. Mr. Brophy, what is your vision for the future of Barre?
The way I approach that question is I'll start on a personal note. I grew up in Worcester. I spent a career in Worcester, in the Worcester Public Schools, a system of 25,000 students. A city, a town, those days was about 185,000. Now it's over 200,000. We moved here in 1990. We had 2 children at the time, and then we had a third. All 3 attended and graduated from Quabbin. The question is, why Barre and the vision of the future of what I see? First and foremost, Barre was in 1990, it was a reasonable place to raise a family, and it was a reasonable cost to buy a home. In 1990, you had more of an influx of folks around that time on the data that shown that you had younger folks coming out with families. Through the 2000 .com bubble burst, the economy there, and the economy in 2007, we all had our, the economy went down the tank. And a lot of people had a lot of problems in regards for work, businesses were closing, and people were leaving Massachusetts. So first off, Barre is a safe place. So why would people want to be here? How do you grow a town's population? You definitely need competent folks on boards that are making good decisions in regards to not only the tax base, how the money's going to be spent, the way it's spent, with proper monitoring and evaluation. Also, you want to have your roads need to be in good roads, because we all know you can't get anywhere to the highway. It's 40 minutes, regardless if it's Route 2, it's 290, 190, or over to the Mass Pike, whatever you may for travel. So we are a rural town. The Barre population is about 5,500, I think. At one point, I know it grew from about 4,000, 4,200 as it moved up. It's moved a little bit, I know, over time. The vision of Barre can be a place that's safe, that folks want to come, There needs to be some other incentives, I hope, for businesses, for hubs that may want to have some, if we can ever get that, those nice tax incentives to have some opportunities. We have been limited with growth and our 2.5 restriction 2. And I truly believe with a good school system, a safe place, a healthy place, boards that are competent and have good communication with each other, and then you can enrich the other parts of the community. You have Eagle Hill School, you have cultural opportunities. There's so many other things that happen around. We are near the Quabbin. We can utilize that. So that's the vision, I think, as we continue. I am grateful that I was able to have 3 children go through the school district. Yes, we're aging in place. We're still here. We want to be here. I have 2 children that are still in the area, so that's very nice, 2 in Barre. So if we continue to encourage that, we know there was that sense was some of our kids leave and want to go to the bigger cities and et cetera, et cetera. But Barre is a rural place. It has a good home perspective, and we need to have leadership and the community involvement why people want to stay, live, and breathe in Barre.
Thank you. Okay, my next question, I think I was for the select board, although now I'm reading it, I'm thinking maybe I'm going to ask the school committee this as well. And you'll see why. So many people in town saw significant tax increases this year, and it seemed to be a direct result of the triennial assessment updates. Are Barre's taxes too high? And if so, what can we do to reduce that burden? I'm going to start with Mr. Dixon.
So yeah, I know quite a bit of taxes went up with the reassessment of all of the properties. I think one of the areas we can look at, there's always the budget to go through, and we can look at it from a perspective of trying to reduce the increase that we need going forward. But I think ultimately, again, one of the biggest things that would offset that is bringing in businesses, some industry, something that would really increase that tax base without putting more cost into the schools. Not, I think we need to create a situation where more families can come in and more kids can go to the school, but that's going to keep increasing costs. So the way to offset that is by having a tax base separate from residential that doesn't include some of those additional costs, again, whether it's commercial and some industry with the industries over by where the mill is coming down, things like that. I think that is ultimately the way it's going to need to be offset, unless we find different grant opportunities and things like that that would cut down on other costs. So I think that's also a good thing to look at, finding other ways to offset those costs through grants, things. But ultimately, I don't know how much we could really reduce spending on salaries to cut the taxes. So I think it's going to end up coming down to finding funding from elsewhere.
Okay, I'm going to direct this same question to the school committee, just because the school budget is so much of the Barre budget. So let's start with Mr. Allen. Do you think that Barre's taxes are too high? And if so, what can we do to reduce that burden?
Yeah, that's a good question to dig into to some degree. Too high, what's too high, what's too low, what's right. It's like my bed's too hard, my bed's too soft, my bed's just, what we can do is work with the town to provide as good an education as possible in as economical a way as possible. And I think we're doing that. My friend Fran Gamalski, when he was on the school committee more than 20 years ago, came up with a brilliant plan to help us accomplish both of those goals. The state has what's called a voucher system, where kids can come from one school district to another for a fee. And part of that sending district loses some money, and the gaining district gets some of that money. So we have kids coming to our school district from 28, I think it's 28 other towns at this point. And it raises a significant amount of money. We have space because the number of children in the school has diminished. So that we work hard to keep the costs down and keep the quality of education up. That was one of the best things that we were able to do. We have about the best education in northern Worcester County here. I mentioned a number of things that we have other districts don't have. That's one of the reasons they send their kids here. Plus to the academics. That's one of the reasons they send their kids here. And in fact, we're well below the state average in cost per pupil, or maybe $1,000, something like that, below the state averages. And in fact, our education is far superior to the state averages. So I guess I have a great deal of thanks for Barre. I don't think they've ever spent an extra nickel on education, but they have spent every nickel that they've needed to in order to keep the education quality up, and so that we can continue to thrive. We've talked about, at least those of us on the school committee, and some of the others have alluded to the importance of education in our vision of the town as the town goes forward. Mark has chaired the budget subcommittee for a number of years and has been much more involved in that than I have. I've been more in the policy and curriculum end, and he can talk more nuts and bolts on that. But from a vision standpoint, I think that we have done, and in cooperation with our fellow town boards, what we need to in order to keep the price as low as possible and the quality as high as possible.
Thank you. Mr. Brophy, are Barre's taxes too high? And if so, what can we do to ease that burden?
I do not think it's too high at all, especially to live in a town for safety, for roads, for libraries, for school, and for other municipal services. I believe FY22 was $16.84 per thousand. So over the time, I've seen it as low. I think it's, hello?
We hear you.
Okay, I'm okay. I think I've seen it as, maybe I remember years ago, as $12 per thousand. I don't know. I don't have those numbers. But I do not believe it's too high. It is an understanding that taxes do go up, and there is a cost for and with living in a community. And it does cost not only for education, which is a huge cost because it involves people. It is personnel heavy. Fire, police, roads, DPW. It costs money to be safe, fire, police, and et cetera. Also, it's a two-way street. When folks buy their home and the homes, and they could sell it for $300,000 more, and to say at the same time, it works two ways. The assessments go up, folks may be able to sell homes. It costs more. It costs more now to build homes, and all the permitting expectations and requirements that are paid off. So to ask me, is it too high? The answer is no. In my perspective, $16.84 per thousand. I don't have the math. I don't know if we're right at the cap of 2.5. I don't know what that leverage is at. I don't have that. I'm not a number type person in that way. But yes, I know it can be difficult. Absolutely, that we have to I'm talking from a systemic point of view, not just from a school point of view, that, we do want services. Folks, we're talking about upgrading the sewer systems and having folks tap into that and to upgrade the plant. Those are costs. And it comes, yes, the state, we're able to get grants or federal funds, et cetera. So when you ask that question that you asked, I hope I was able to articulate what I believe it is. To be honest with you, I think Barre's rate is very reasonable compared, if we keep going east. Worcester, Shrewsbury, go to those other 495 towns out that way. It's outrageous in taxes. We still have a very safe place. Barre can continue to grow alley bit small because I understand it has its rural roots and doesn't want to lose that, and I agree. But we also have the reality that we don't have the companies and that are coming out here and things like that. So at the same time, I understand that they have to assess, and it may cost us a little more, and it may cost us some $200 more a year. But I'm going to tell you, I'm grateful to live in a place, fire, police, et cetera, schools, as well as safe roads for Barre. So I hope I was able to articulate as best I could to that question.
And finally, Ms. Handy, do you think that Barre's taxes are too high? And if so, what can we do to ameliorate that?
I am not completely familiar with the taxes, as we have just bought our first house last summer, but to me, they seem, or I guess fair, or worth it, because this community is amazing. I do wish that the town, or we could make the town somehow more appealing to make more businesses come into the town without losing our charm. The business taxes are very important to a community. And I think that taxes for or funding schools should be prioritized, because our children are the future. And I think that this community is super amazing. Like the fire, like Mr. Brophy was saying, the police, the roads, everything. Like I do feel very safe in this community overall. I'm very happy that my kids are going to be able to grow up here. And so I guess I'm just overall okay with the taxes.
Okay, thank you. My next question is for planning board candidates and the select board candidate. Does Barre need a master plan? What is a master plan, and how does that master plan get implemented? I'm going to start with Mr. Mobilio.
Well, I think the master plan is being implemented as we speak. We've had discussions on the planning board with the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission, and they have not really, disclosed everything to us, but they wanted some input as to what our thoughts were on certain aspects of things. There's more meetings planned in the future. I think a master plan is needed, but whether you follow it or not, and whether you have grants and funds to follow through with ideas, it's all for naught, because it's not going to come out of the basic tax base. That's not happening. But it is a good idea. It's a vision. It can be a goal, and I think I previously stated, it can make a community more of a community, more attractive and more viable, more sustainable.
Thank you. Mr. Harpen, same question to you. Does Barre need a master plan? What is a master plan, and how does it get implemented?
Sorry to say, once again, I don't have a compelling answer. Kind of trying to get myself back into the flow of being a part of the community. So that's why I thought the planning board would be a good first step for me, being more aware of what's going on. So sorry to say I don't have a good answer, and I don't want to waste anyone's time. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Dixon, same question to you.
Yeah, so master plans, I believe those are really a very important part of any town, for any community. I know in the work that I've done, anytime there's a master plan available, especially with roadway projects, when there is, some unique funding, it's always a very short time frame, and having a list of items or projects that you can just pull right off of, you have it essentially ready to go. You can capitalize on that funding before another town can come in and get it. It typically pays for itself in my experience. A master plan, I've always looked at it more from the road perspective, because that's been my specialty, but it includes other things from, improving buildings to having different regional goals. I think they're undervalued, honestly. I'm very glad that Barre has started working on one, and I think it's one that the community as a whole really needs to be involved with, that there needs to be a lot of outreach for. There are so many times projects start moving forward and the people around the project, wait, I've never heard about this. So I think it's something where there needs to be a lot of involvement. It's setting a list of priorities, but it's also just categorizing those, to have those, even if you're going out of order, if you see an opportunity to go for one of these, you can go for it. I believe anything without a plan is just a dream, and you can dream all you want about the future of Barre, but having an actual plan for how to get there is going to make a world of difference, having actual attainable steps to reach toward.
Okay, thank you. Seems like we lost Mr. Allen, but my next question is for the school committee candidates. I guess I'll start with Ms. Handy. My question is bullying a problem in the Quabbin Middle High School? And if so, what steps would you take to help the administration address that problem?
Okay, so for me, bullying is also not just a problem in the middle and high school, it's also a very big problem in the elementary schools, as my children are feeling that. And I have had many other parents message me about their kids also dealing with bullying. I don't feel like bullying should be acceptable at all. Like, it should not be tolerated. I feel like maybe the school board could do something about teaching the importance of not bullying and the effects of bullying at younger ages. It's really, really hard to have kids in the school system, even at such a young age as mine, kindergarten and first grade, being bullied, but never mind, like any grade, it's equally as bad, and it's really sad. And I wish that, or I don't wish, well, I do wish, but I also like hope that the school board could make a change to that, either having speakers come in or having some type of program or whatever to make these kids understand that bullying is not acceptable and should never be done in our schools.
Thank you. Mr. Brophy, do you think that bullying is a problem in the middle high school? And if so, what steps would you take to help the administration address the problem?
No, I don't think it's a problem that I'm fully aware, that I'm aware of. I have an ear to the community as well. We work very well with the superintendent and the administration. And the administration has a good system in place, not only with supervision, but also with teachers and support. So if there is, and there, as we know, bullying can happen, we have always and continue to maintain not only good mental health and support for kids. We just recently, again, through the help of the administration, really charge of the administration, Q Drug, we got a $200,000 grant to continue to work on not only drug and alcohol abuse prevention, education, but also be able to develop programs. Melissa mentioned speakers. There have been programs where we've had people coming in, even from the jail has had Lou Evangelitis. I know I'm saying the name wrong. The sheriff over the years, we had the basketball player have come in and speak. It's not us to, it's a partnership. It's with parents, it's teachers, it's students, it's administrators. From a school perspective, as a school committee perspective, what we can help is helping with grants. If we end up getting some extra money, we also have looked at hiring and continue when we evaluate those positions. We want additional counselors, behavior specialists. Not that we're picking on kids at one bully versus another. We also, over the years, with my experience even in Worcester, we had mediation programs. We were even through the district attorney's office over the years, we were able to have programs in the middle school and high school that can be developed. And I believe Quabbin has done that over the years. We can revisit those type of perspectives. Students can find other ways to solve conflict. Conflict is inevitable. It is real. It happens from anywhere from 3 years old to 85 years old, and in various fashions, forms, and perspectives. The question is, how do we handle? And then we talk about the soft skills. You can talk about competencies. You can talk about math, science, chemistry, physics. But then you talk about the soft skills of how you articulate, how do you connect, how do you relate, how do you work, how do you support, how do you work with teams, how do you wait your turn. So all those pragmatic skills, those social skills we talk about, some of us are better than others that can learn that innately. Others need more opportunities to practice. That's what I would say. More opportunities to practice. What we can do if there is a problem, and there's a process in place. There is the administration, and if there is and it continues to be a problem, and we then would hear further calls from parents, and we don't micromanage the school district, but through our continued governance, through our committee work and communication with the superintendent and her team, we can then help and alleviate bullying. But that's not just a one system fix. That's a community and an outreach, and is even like with the Q drug perspective of those type of forums and opportunities for kids to get better. We all know there's always a bully in the playground. We teach kids how to not only articulate for themselves, strong for themselves, but also how to solve conflicts. I know I can be winded. I apologize. Thank you for giving me that time. I hope I answered the question. And if it bubbles up and it is outrageous or becoming highlighted, I would have a problem. We would have a problem. All of us would have a problem, and we want to solve that together.
Okay, same question to Mr. Allen. You were offline, but you're back. So the question is there a bullying problem in Quabbin Middle and High School? And if so, what steps can you take to help the administration address the problem?
Oh, that's a problem with adolescents everywhere. It probably is no more so nor less so here, but it's our job to try to help our children as much as we can. Mark was talking about the basketball player. That was Chris Herron. I helped fund him coming here and talking to us. We must have had 250, 300 people that he addressed. We have policies at our local district. We have state policies on what to do about it, how to do about it, how to do something about it. There's procedures for the administration and teachers to follow that are well laid out in our policies. Mark helped get us a consultant, Khalees Warnham, talking about how to work with different kinds of children with different kinds of backgrounds so that they can live in, well, at least not disharmony, hopefully harmony, but at least not disharmony. So your question is very valid, but I think we've been addressing it and addressing it assiduously.
Okay. I have a question for our select board candidate. Tell us about Barry's bond rating and what impact it has and what we can do to improve it. Mr. Dixon.
Yeah, so Barry does have a low bond rating. There have been some issues in the past that have brought us to this point. One of the things we can do is to make sure that as we go forward, we are keeping everyone in the town accountable. Whether anyone who is handling taxes, finances, money, we need transparency, we need accountability, and we can start to build up that bond rating again. It comes through different ways, including, the way money is lent and borrowed, but ultimately we need to be diligent. We need to be careful with where it's going, and just keeping absolute transparency so everyone can see where it's going, what it's doing. We hold people accountable, and we can build back our bond rating.
Okay. Question for the, hang on one sec here. I jumped around a little bit. I guess that, yeah. So I really only have one more good question here. And this is for the school committee. I would like to know, under what circumstances would you vote to bring back mask mandates? So let's start with Mr. Brophy this time.
Give me the question again, exactly.
Under what circumstances would you vote to bring back mask mandates?
We have been dealing with this for 2 years, all of us. It happened in March 16th, 18th, whenever it started, that we all got affected by it. The question is, when would we bring them back? We just recently, and we acted accordingly as a body politic. Remember, the mask mandates came from the state, which was put upon all school districts. We didn't have a say on that, aside from the state Board of Ed had a waiver system in place. With 360 districts, X amount of schools within all those high schools and elementaries, there was a rubric that had to be met on the vaccination status of a town, of a given community, to lift the mask mandate back in the late fall. So once the state gave the recognition with the lowering of the COVID, of the numbers, the option, we did follow through as a committee, and we used the metrics that we had and the information that we had to make that decision to be optional. So when we updated the policy, we didn't, as a committee of 15 and with the administration, working in concert with administration and the community, listening to the numbers, working with the boards of health that we have to work with, as well as a school physician. We include other voices. There are folks that may have different, everyone has opinions. People want to be heard and to be heard and understood that they have a different perspective or don't want certain things. The masks, we had to have that was applied to us, all of us, statewide. What rubrics, what we would use is, I would expect, and I don't mean that negatively to say expect the superintendent, but I would expect we would be looking at the community numbers, the transmissions, the new, all those pieces, as well as looking at the CDC, Department of Ed, a pediatric association. We would use other forms of systems to help look at that data. We have gone through HE double hockey sticks, whatever, how you, without me saying that word, but we all have gone through a tremendous time these past 2 years. There's no such thing as going back to a normal. It's now becoming an adjustment of our new perspective. So I would use various metrics. I would hope that we don't have to. Lastly, it is not just masks. There were other mitigating strategies we employed as well. What has come out, which is one thing is fantastic, and it should happen for all of us. Too bad that the system that we live in the United States doesn't treat public schools as well as they do other systems. The airflow, we have better airflow systems. We now have itemizers. We have, geez, I think kids and people are washing their hands more and more. I think we're doing better on that. So there will be multiple measures to look at that, along with using data to inform our decision. Thank you for letting me be a little extended on my question, on my answer. Okay,
thank you. Ms. Handy, we'll go to you next. Under what circumstances would you reimpose mask mandates?
So for me, I'm not against masks, but I am against the mandates. So in the COVID-19 situation, I would not mandate masks again. There are negative effects that come from wearing masks, like speech learning delay, as well as many other issues. It causes oxygen levels to drop, which can cause damage to children's brains. the COVID-19 appeared to not be necessarily dangerous for young kids. I feel like if you want to wear a mask and that makes you feel safe, then you absolutely should have the right to do that. And you absolutely should do that. But if you feel like you don't need a mask to feel safe, or you feel safe not wearing one, then you should have that option too as well, for not just you, but for your children too.
Okay. We lost Dr. Allen again. So if he comes back, I'll ask him that question. But otherwise, I think we're going to give everybody a chance to just say some final words. I'm going to go in the order that you are in my little gallery here. So I have John Dixon is next to me. So John, anything you want to say to wrap up?
Yeah, first, I just want to thank everyone here for coming to watch. And I want to thank you, Josh, for putting this together, or everyone who put this together, and you for moderating it. I know it's a heavy task ahead, and I'm very hopeful that I'll get the opportunity to represent everyone on our select board. I'm consider myself to be a quick learner, ambitious. I'm prepared to ask questions when we do have situations come up that we haven't faced before as a town. I believe we can reach out to towns that have gone through it. I believe we can work together to find ways forward and learn from the experiences that others have had, because we will, the challenges we face will likely be new ones that we haven't faced before, and there will also be ones we faced before that we can do better at. And I think as long as I'd like to keep improving on some of the past improvements we've made, and find any other areas where there could be something that possibly could inhibit us, and try to work out the details of that, try to fix those issues before they become serious problems. So
Okay.
thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak here.
Mr. Harpen, any final words?
Yes, thanks, Josh. I'd just like to add that I think my background as a contractor would serve me well on the planning board. I've spent a lot of time navigating customers and navigating building departments and the like. And I'm even keeled guy. I feel like I communicate well. And as Anthony mentioned previously, I think just showing up is the first step to participating, and I can definitely do that. I have the time and the interest, and I hope I get the opportunity to serve the community. Thank you.
Mr. Mobilio, any final words?
Yes, I do have a few. I am definitely pro-business, as I previously mentioned, but I'm not leveraged against any business or anything like that. I don't run a business, but I am pro-business. And the town of Barre needs to be served with consistency, rational thought, and due diligence. I'm ready. My will is strong. My resolve is stronger to roll up my sleeves and get going on all the new things that we have on the platter for the planning board and for the town of Barre. And I hope, to make unbiased decisions with rational thought on every matter that comes before the board. And I try to, get very informed as to, information on what is being brought before the board, before the meeting. And I really hope, that I will be able to continue, as in this role. And I think that is all.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brophy, any final words?
Very brief. I believe I have the skills, the relevancy, and the attributes that matter to be reelected as a member of the Quabbin Regional School Committee. I'm asking the Barre voters that if you believe that, I ask you for your vote to reelect me on Monday, April 4th, 2022. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Handy, any final words?
Yes, I just want to say that I am super grateful for this opportunity. I've actually been able to meet some really amazing people from doing this in this community that I will probably be friends with for a lifetime. I'm just super excited for this opportunity. I am very involved in the community. Like obviously I'm not on the school board, or not yet, but I do coach sports in town. I'm involved at the PTO. I volunteer my time as much as possible. I think I'd be a good candidate as I do have children in school, and I'm very invested with not just my children, but all the children in this community. I am a quick learner, and I am willing to research anything and be the voice that any parent needs or wants. And I just want to say thank you. And I hope that the Barre voters will go out and vote for me on April 4th.
Okay, thank you. I have a statement from our town clerk that I'm going to read to everybody because that is full of good information. The polls are going to be open on Monday, April 4th from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. There's no early voting for this election. There is only absentee voting for those who qualify. All requests for absentee ballots need to be received by the town clerk by 12 noon on Friday, April 1st, 2022. All absentee ballots must be received by the town clerk before the polls close on 8 p.m. on April 4th. There's a large blue drop mailbox located outside the Henry Woods building next to the staircase. It's available 24/7 for voters to drop off their ballots or applications to receive a ballot. Voters should be sure to return their census form to avoid their voter registration status being inactivated. There's a reminder to you candidates that your first campaign and finance filing deadline is March 28th. If you spend no money or your expense is under $50 spent on the campaign, you can sign the blanket form in the town clerk's office. But if you spend money, even out of your own pocket, more than $50 on your campaign, you need to keep receipts, file campaign and finance form listing the source and all of their expenditures with the town clerk's office. Their second filing is due on May 4th. Any questions pertaining to the election, absentee ballots, or voter registration status can be directed to the town clerk, Ellen Glidden, by email, clerk@townofbarre.com, or by calling her 978-355-2504, extension 5. So that's all I have. Thank you so much to the candidates and to everybody who spent an hour of their precious time this evening to listen to the candidates. This whole thing has been recorded. It's going to be put up onto the public access channel so that you can watch it if you have Barre cable, and presumably he'd also put it onto the YouTube channel that the town maintains, I would hope. So it's Monday, March 28th. We've got just a couple of weeks. Wait a second. Ellen said
Next week.
Yeah, Friday, April 1st is your deadline for absentee ballots, and then the 4th is election day. So thank you everybody for coming, and I wish you all good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Yeah.